it was an interesting time in my life. I think I learned a lot about radio while working on that radio station. But yes, it is true, I did get suspended from that radio station, and it was for a prank I played. And this just goes to show, I think that someone like me was probably never capable of growing up. This is basically what happened. In most radio stations, you get a little recording studio adjacent to it happens with most radio stations, even Notch Radio. Like right next door to my studio, we've got a little glass window, and across the studio across the studio window is a recording studio. That's where we record all our jingles and whatnot, and all this commercials and advertising. If the voiceover isn't outsourced to an artist somewhere out of the country, we'll usually record them in here. Like I've recorded a bunch of stuff in that studio as well and whatnot. And a typical recording studio has stuff like microphones and a little switchboard and computers and a little tripod. And the tripod is what they put the microphone onto. Well, this radio station was no different. They had a little tripod and whatnot. And one day we're in the recording studio, and I pick up the tripod and I go, this looks like a big bazooka gun. I had probably been playing Contra for way too many years in my life. Remember Contra on the family game Nintendo? Yes. So it looked like one of those guns. And I'm like, this looks like, this is really interesting. And one of the girls sitting there was wearing a scarf and whatnot, and it was a keffiyeh, like the little checkered red and white scarf. And I was like, oh, I have an idea. and you know what? If anyone who knows me, if I ever tell you that with bright eyes, I have an idea, that's a bad thing. It's never a good thing if I'm like, I have an idea. So I go, why don't you give me your scarf and I'll tie it around my face and I'll hold the tripod like it's a gun and I'll try and hold up the radio station. And at some point, us bichari ki kismat kharab thi, she bought into the idea too, and she gives me her scarf, and I'm like, okay, well now watch. And adjacent to the radio station was a little Islamic bookstore, which was affiliated with, there was this whole little organization, right? And so I go into the bookstore and and I'm like, hands up. And they're all like on their knees. One old guy who apparently was a heart patient pressed arm response, and security forces came over and whatnot. And I think the next day there was a little sort of meeting with the board of directors, and they're like, okay, we understand that you're young, but you're also a hazard to have at this radio station, so we're gonna have to suspend you, and we'll think about what we want to do with you later. And I'm like, whatever, okay, I am the best presenter you have here. I can do this voice. Okay, I can do this voice, a sex voice. What are you talking about? And they're like, no, really, get out. So that was my first stint in radio. It was an amazing little story. Babini feels I should never tell the story to anyone, and she feels that I should especially not say the story to her, considering she's my employer, that I have this terrible employment history in radio. But I went on to better things from there onwards. I think the fact that I had a turbulent relationship with religious radio meant that I got into commercial radio and started playing music and whatnot, which explains why I'm sitting here right now. So I guess, holding up a little bookstore was a small price to pay for ending up on Notch Radio. Here we go with Bunty or Bubbly.